Town Council Budget Workshop of March 11, 2019 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up on our agenda for the grants and contributions budget is Wood River Health Services. I see Allison and David. Allison, come on up. Nice to see you. Looks like you're requesting the same amount as last fiscal year.
That's correct. I'm sorry, what was the question?
I thought you wanted 15.
We came in with a funding request the same as last year.
Right.
10,000.
Allison,
Yes.
give the council any updates, I guess, in your world. I know I took the tour, and I'm sure others did as well. And,
Yes.
everything seems to be doing well. I looked at the budget, it looks like they're growing the numbers, which is very nice to see. Have at it.
Thank you. Good evening. So we have requested level funding from last year. We are experiencing some growth, and we anticipate some additional growth in the near future. We have signed a lease to open up an expansion location in Westerly. With that expansion, we are currently recruiting for additional staff, a nurse practitioner and a family medicine physician. That staff will rotate between our Hope Valley facility as well as the Westerly location, so the patients that come to the Hope Valley facility will benefit from that new staff as well. In addition to those clinicians, most likely we hire additional nurse case managers, behavioral health clinicians over time. As you mentioned, we have had some recent renovations. We're looking at some additional renovations to add additional parking for our staff as our staff grows, and a few other things planned in that way.
Okay. Any questions for Allison? Sharon?
No, I would say that the dilemma, I don't know if you're going to be level funded or what the situation is, but I think it's important for me to point out, and the council to point out, that we are required to stay within a certain cap unless the state of Rhode Island allows us to go over that. So to what extent, and I can't tell you now, how that will impact any funding for any nonprofit or any other part of the budget, because I don't really know where that's going to go. But it looks like we're going to be definitely over the cap, and I would assume it's possible, depending upon the state, whether or not we're going to have to make adjustments to that. So I think you should be warned about that in advance. Not that it's going to happen, but it potentially could happen.
But the amounts that I think everyone, at least based on last year's amount, was already factored into the budget. So whether we have to take additional money out of fund balance because the Auditor General says no to our request to exceed the 4% cap is almost immaterial. I don't think we're not going to fund it. So,
Yeah,
anyways.
I would agree. I mean, your work is just important to the entire town of Hopkinton. It has grown considerably and consistently. I'm glad you have an outreach area in Westerly, and I'm just as glad that you're thinking of expanding in Hopkinton itself. That gives us jobs and it takes care of all of our people. So I am more than happy to level fund because it is a hard year for us. So we're not really adding to most, but I'm very happy you're here and doing great work. And I did also really like the growth, the asset growth. That was really excellent.
Sylvia, do you have any questions, comments for Allison?
No. It's hard sometimes from year to year to make an increase, so we appreciate the fact that you're trying to level fund, and that's appreciated. Thank you.
And I know I use the Wood River Health Services myself personally, and it's a great asset to the region.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess everybody's in favor of level funding the budget at $10,000 per year? Okay.
Yes.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Good
Thank
to
you
see you.
for coming in. Nice to see you again.
See you soon. Ashaway Free Library. You are up next, ma'am. Okay. All right, let's see. Ashaway Library's looking for an additional $2,000 over last year's fiscal year town allocation. Any comments from you? Certainly be welcome.
Well, I'm pretty sure everybody knows that the big news at the Ashway Free Library is our brand new community room, which I'm very happy to be able to say is nearing completion. Carpet's getting installed on March 18th. And there'll be some other little things that we need to take care of, but we are hoping to have our grand opening on the same day as our big book at Bake and Plant sale on May 18th. So everybody mark your calendars because we would love to have you there. You'll be getting a more official invitation, I'm sure.
What was the date on? I forgot.
May 18th.
May 18th.
Yeah, 9 to 1 is the sale, and at some point during the day will be our grand opening ceremony and tour, such as it is. Some of you have already seen the room inside, and some of you came by. So yeah, we're really excited about it. It's going to give us a lot of opportunities to kind of add value to the town, I think. I was doing some research on library statistics recently, and in the last several years, programming in libraries, public libraries across the country has increased by about 6%, while circulation of sort of physical materials is down about 3%. We've had a decline in our physical item circulation as well. Strangely, this year we're actually on track to increase, even though we've been under construction since the beginning of the fiscal year, so that's kind of actually exciting for us too. So we're going to be able to offer a lot more things, a lot of things that I've dreamed about since I came to Ashaway, not just programming like you expect from a library, such as storytelling, lectures, concerts, craft programs, but also some things that I hope might really add things to community, such as help with voter registration, more types of information and technical literacy, even things with healthcare, possibly some vaccines or free health screenings that we might be able to offer. I've seen a lot of other libraries doing things like that. It kind of feels like a whole world of possibilities are opening up for us. So we're kind of on the edge of a really cool future, I think, and we would appreciate your support.
Any questions for Heather?
I was curious about something. With the two libraries, who opened first? I was just curious. I wondered which library opened first.
We opened in 1871 and incorporated in 1907. I don't know about when we're there.
1888.
1888.
Okay,
So we're a couple years ahead. Was that your incorporation or your formation?
That was, I believe that was...
I virtually live in a sense in the Ashford Library. I spend a lot of time there. I'm lucky they have the grant stuff. It's a great resource in Ashaway in particular.
no, it's delightful. The new space is beautiful, and when you finish it up, it's just going to be magic.
It looks good, doesn't it?
It does.
It looks really good.
Barbara?
I know we're going to be talking about both Ashaway and Langley at some point, and I have to say I am in favor of their request, their $2,000 request, because both of the libraries are growing, and Ashaway certainly has had a difficult year raising all the funds for the new community room. And I know both of the libraries work hand in glove with each other, which I really appreciate. They have been at $66,000 for the last 2 years, and so I am at least open to discussing giving them the $68,000. I think both of them should use it for all of the outreach, and I really appreciate some of the new ideas on outreach that you might be able to work with River Health. Especially my concern is the vaccines now seem to be quite the discussion in the papers. So I am happy that you're trying to outreach to other organizations as well as just things within the library proper. But I am open to that for both libraries. I know it's a difficult year, and I know we're pretty much going to look at probably level funding, but I would hope that people would at least consider it, because it has been an expensive year for the growth in Ashaway, and I know from looking at this, Langworthy has also done quite a bit of growth this year as well. And they are, especially with our citizens that have fixed incomes, and some are needy, some are stressed, I know the library is a real wonderful place, a real resource for them on any number of levels. And I have appreciated it consistently. You have the nicest people. They are always kind to whomever comes in, and I really appreciate it.
I'm open to increasing the funding of libraries. My concern, without a promise, but I'm open to it, is the fact, number one, there's a good chance we're going to go over the tap. Apparently, the council president thinks that we could probably use the fund balance, and usually, it's usually recommended that we have a certain amount in our fund balance. So, I'll see where this plays out, but I will certainly open to doing that, and I enjoy letting get the Langworthy too often. My only complaint about the Langworthy Library is parking can be difficult up there sometimes. But other than that, my only criticism of Langworthy, I love the genealogical collection and historical collection up there, and I haven't used it in quite a while, but that's the only complaint I have about the Langworthy Library is the parking situation.
Well, that's not on the agenda.
No, but I just
We're sure we'll figure that out.
We're not in favor of garage, however, just in case that comes up.
Sharon, any questions for Sylvia, did you speak?
Yeah, I did. I appreciate the request for an increase and I could go with 1,000 or 2,000, one of the other, see what council wants to do.
Yeah, it's just a tough budget year.
Yeah,
We're
we
already up
understand that.
83 cents on the mill rate, so I can't support an increase today or going forward this fiscal year because of that. And they also, too, I think the library's, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have that maintenance of effort.
We do have maintenance.
So that's also, it's a, once you give it, you can't take it,
Exactly.
you can't take it away, so.
Right.
That's another reason, but it's just really a difficult, I can't justify adding more to nonprofits when we're gonna have an increase, and it's just a very difficult year to say the least. And it's not anything that you folks did, or the council did, or the town, it's all strictly attributed to state aid to education was declined by 100,000 or 97, and then Charahoe's enrollment shift cost us another 605,000. So right out of the gate, we were 705,000 over budget.
Yeah.
So, and if we don't have the Auditor General approve our going above the 4% cap, we're going to have to take out another 160,000, 162 from our fund balance for this budget. So,
We definitely understand.
so anyway, that's the rationale, and I'm sticking to it. So anyway, that's my thoughts. So I just can't do it this year, but I think you guys do great work, and I'm certainly happy to level fund it.
Thank you.
So I think you're kind of hearing we're not sure.
We'll work on it.
We have one more budget meeting, but I don't know if that's, Lisa, if we put that on, I don't know if we did.
There was a possibility the next meeting if we needed it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Grants and contributions.
Okay.
Well, that's tonight.
Well, that's, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is on there. It's on
It
there.
is, okay,
Yeah.
fine, thanks. Okay. All right. So anyway, that's it.
Well, you know where to find me if you have any other questions or
Okay.
any other information.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up, Langworthy.
So, good evening. We are working on parking. We have some plans. We're working again very with a landscape architect and trying to come up with additional parking spaces. We did recently remove our shed that was in the back of the library, hoping that we can make a little more parking. We're waiting for plans to bring for the towns so that we can get your approval for it. But we do understand that it's a very tight fiscal year for you this year. But anything you can do for us is definitely appreciated.
And I will say that I use the Langworthy Library, I'm part of the library club,
Okay.
book club, so I'm your champion.
And I did know,
That's
I'm
great.
looking at both of them, both of you are at a deficit this year.
Yeah.
I did take a look at that too. And I just think you're one of the most valuable portions of town Hopkinton.
We do try to serve everyone who walks through our doors. So,
Yeah, so the prior year allocation was 66, they were looking for 2,000 more, so do we have a general consensus on this, or we want to wait till Wednesday on this as well?
I think we want to talk about it. I'm certainly open to that, and I've already said that for both of you. But I'm sure we'll look at it when we start smushing everything together.
yes.
Well, that's Wednesday.
Okay, and so we are, I mean, Ashley and Lynn would be, Heather and I do try and work together, we try and share, we've got programming that we do jointly, our preschoolers. We recently started a magazine subscription for selecting books, and we share that subscription. So we are trying to share our costs wherever possible.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, our friends from Hope Valley Residents. Nice to see you, Richard.
Nice to see you folks. Basically, as far as the way of statement, I gotta say, we did not meet the budget last year. We've had some, due to the federal ruling a few years ago, volunteers versus paid people, our payroll budget has gone up by $20,000 last year. And the ease of getting volunteers has actually been much more difficult. So as of last year's budget, we were almost 30,000 behind.
There's a payroll.
Because, well, we had a shortfall on the billing income by 10,000 in the overage on the payroll of 20, so that gives us basically a $30,000. Now, between the president and our board of directors and stuff, we are putting some controls on. One of the things that's killing us is overtime. We're trying to control it better. Because of the rulings on volunteerism versus payroll, we can't get as many people to volunteer. They come in and they jump at a chance to go to one of the payroll jobs, and now all of a sudden we can't let them volunteer. It hurt us, that ruling
Yeah,
did.
can you explain, Richard, because I'm not quite sure how it works. So if folks are volunteering, but they do get a stipend, like if you guys have to go on a run, they do get something, right?
Well,
I don't know how that,
we used to run, as a volunteer, no, we did not get a stipend. I've worked 30 years without getting a single penny from them.
oh, okay.
My wife, at one time, would take money for transports, but not emergency calls. The government stopped us from doing that.
Oh, okay.
And
So it's almost truly volunteer, when in the
it's,
sense of.
right now, it's almost truly a paid, because once you pay somebody, you can't let them volunteer. The one track that we did take one, and we didn't get punished for it because the government looked at it and said it was an honest mistake, is we had people that were on payroll that would volunteer at the fair. We had to go back and pay them. It only amounted to a few $100s, but, and because it was such a small amount, they forgave us. We had to pay it, but we didn't get punished for it. And it's just been tougher and tougher to get volunteers. I guess it's a fair announcement now, my wife and I are both retired as of December. Our licenses, we let them lapse. Due to health reasons and stuff, we actually dropped out in November because my wife had some severe health issues.
Oh, okay.
And I must admit right now, because of her health issues, I'm not doing as good a job as a treasurer as needs doing. And my term lapses in December for that, and I will not be taking that again. So I want to be honest with you folks. This is the last time you'll see me in an official capacity.
You've done a very good job over
It's
the
been 30 years and I've enjoyed every minute of it, but
It's time to transfer it over to someone else.
well, this is one of the concerns we're facing this year, and this is why I'm letting you know that we are kind of in a budgetary crisis at this point. I hate to come to you on my last visit and say something like that, it bothers me.
My concern with like ambulance squad, you're not like a library, because the only revenue a library gets is like fines or you know, making copies, I mean, other than things of that nature, but how do you determine the expense of an ambulance ride? Do you determine that? Does the Hope Valley Ambulance Board decide, or do you have a state body that determines how much you can charge for different services, whether it's an ambulance ride or that type of stuff?
You know, you're asking a very complicated question here. We can bill anything we want. What are we going to get? As you probably are all aware, that the hospital, if a person goes to the hospital, they bill one amount to the patient. But if they're insured, the insurance actually says, this is what we're paying for it, and you have to forgive the rest. We're in that same situation. We can bill $1,200, $1,400 for that ride to the hospital. But if you're getting health mate, you're going to get $120. If you're getting one of the better plans, you might get $1,000. You're not going to get what you bill. The only one that we, and this is what we find very unfair in the system, the person that can least afford it is the only one we can go after and get the full payment. And largely we don't, because we have a conscience. And we try to be fair to whomever we take in. And
What happens, okay, somebody makes a call and instead of going to the Wesley Hospital, it's Kent County. Or in other circumstances, it's Rhode Island Hospital. Do you get paid more because it's a longer trip? Does the insurance recognize that? Or is it kind of the same amount as if it went to Wesley or Providence?
we get a flat fee for the treatments and a mileage fee for the distance.
Oh.
So yes, it's
A
more
little
when we
bit.
take them to Rhode Island, but not drastically more. If we're doing a cardiac service, we're going to get the flat fee for putting the monitor on the patient, for pushing the drugs, or whatever it is that we decide has to be done. We're going to get the side fee. Now, as far as we use a billing service who actually probably bills for 80% of the ambulances in the state of Rhode Island. And we meet with them periodically. We got out of a meeting, it was about a month ago, George, and discussed whether our rates are in the right zone. And pretty much they said, just what I told you, we can put the rates up, but you're still only going to collect what the insurance is willing to give you. So we cannot drive our income up by raising our prices. We did raise the price on our membership. We went up to 55. Those cards will be going out. Well, Sandy was going to take them to the post office this morning, whether the post office cooperated, and we got that done. I'm not sure yet. I haven't talked to Sandy, but that's always a complex thing, the way we do it. So. Sure.
I was looking at your 2017 990, and it kind of compared to 2016. It looked like you had a higher profit, and that your other expenses, whatever those are, were less than the year before. So I thought you were doing great. But are you telling me
We
that
were
2017? I know, that's what I'm asking you. So in 2018, it's a different...
Actually, our billing ones have dropped slightly, not a large percentage, but they are lower this year, or this past year, than they were the year before. Expenses, we've tried to control. Like I say, the one that's out of control is the payroll. We are looking for solutions on that. And at the same time, we're gonna have to look at solutions for my job, which I don't take any money for. In all probability, we're gonna have to pay somebody to do that job in the future. And
Is it a 40-hour job, a 40-hour week job?
no, I probably do 15 hours a week because my wife and I both used to volunteer on Friday nights, that we have already dropped out of, but for the bookkeeping alone, I probably am still doing 14 or 15 hours a week.
Yeah, I think I'm concerned on both of the ambulances because we do have volunteer ambulances, we don't have paid positions, and most towns will have a paid fire and ambulance because they are part of the health, safety, and well-being of the town, and it's the only way we're served. I was taking a look too at salary and wages, and your actuals for 2017 was $277,009, and already this year you're at 314. I mean, you're really, and I understand why you're going up and you have no option about it except to try to control some of your overtime, but I'm concerned across the board for both Hope Valley and Ashley Ambulance because volunteerism is lessening for any number of reasons,
Yes.
many of them being that husband and wives both work, and so it's harder to do. So, you know, I know it's a bad budget year. I am still interested in helping them because they are our central ambulance. I mean, it's the way we take care of every single person in town. And it is, you know, the school is a problem, but our tax base is the bigger problem. We do not have one except for the people. And at the same time, the people need the services of these people that have served for 100 years. I mean, you have been an ambulance society for something in the early 1900s. And
Well, we started in 1951.
yeah, so I mean,
My father was one of the founders of it.
right, and I am concerned because we have to do this, and the last thing I want is a fully professional ambulance and fire department because they're very, 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 very expensive. So I think the money that we give to the ambulances comes back in spades. And if we try to do it, if we fail on either of these and become professional, we've done it.
It's a lot more expensive, there's no
It's
doubt about
extraordinarily
it.
expensive.
We bought a new ambulance this year, and it was $200,000.
And it's not just the ambulance, it's the manpower.
And I mean, maybe this isn't the right time to bring it up, but there was an article in the, I think it was the Wesley Sun, or it could have been the Charlotte Times, about what Charlestown was asking their town council. And just as a point of information, they had been asking $163,000, and this year they're up their request to $200,000. This is not a single person standing up saying we're mismanaging anything. It's saying there's a trend that
Yeah, but
we
they
need
also
to face,
have
and I'm not
summer.
sure how to face it.
Yeah, they have a huge summer influx too, but so do we, for that matter. We get
Our goals
lots of
go up
people
in the
with
summer
tourism
by a
in the
long
summer.
shot.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm open to it because they're the only ones we've got. And if we don't take care of the volunteer services, we are going to have to be professional. Because the state will make us professional, because you have to take care of people. So $2,000 or $4,000 total. I realize we have a bad budget, but our budget is bad for several reasons, not just one. And if we have to raise taxes, then we have to raise taxes. $4,000 is basically a penny. So
It's
it's
8,500.
8,500 for a penny? Well, then it's half a lot less. And it's half a penny.
Half a penny.
And I do
But so-
apologize
and
for
I-
this,
I'm-
because I'm giving you the facts as I see them.
And I really appreciate, I live in Ashley, so I don't
Yeah.
really deal with Hope Valley.
And the 2,000 is not going to close the gap.
No,
We still
and-
are having the surge.
It's almost more like goodwill. And I apologize for that. That is pretty much as we can do for the
Yeah.
Have you met with the Richmond Town Council yet, the finance board?
Not yet.
Okay.
I haven't got a notice on when they want me Actually, last year, they skipped me because they just took my numbers at word and didn't question. This year, I expect with the increase, I'll be asked why.
It's been, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think traditionally the town of Richmond and Hopkins give all valid the same amount.
We've asked the same amount for both. Actually, if we get down to the solid truth, Hopkinton has always delayed a year or two from when we made an increase to not give us the increase for a year or two, where Richmond has been pretty much right in step with us. But in the end, you're both given the same value. You're both given the same money.
On your grants and contributions request form, it says the Center of Hopkins total is 42%. Well, a lot of that is Canachet Cliffs, because you cover Canachet Cliffs, right?
Actually,
I've been doing so.
you're getting the lower number in Hopkinton. It all, when I started out, as far back as 10 years ago, Hopkinton always had the bigger number. About 10 years ago, that started shifting to Richmond having the higher numbers. I'm not sure why. I don't know. Some of it's the fear, some of it's 95.
We're just healthier, right?
Well,
Yes, we are, we're healthy.
I'd like to think that.
We're more wonderful as a town.
I think one thing is the reason why is because we cover the whole town of Richmond compared to
Yes, yes.
probably 50%.
Yeah, one village of
Hopkinton.
Hopkinton.
Yeah.
That's a good point, George.
So
Have you, oh, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, on your request form where it says town municipal funding, so who is involved in that?
Us.
No, there's
That
town
would be
department.
good.
it's to the town.
No, Richmond and us, Richmond and us.
That's what I'm.
Well, yes, but then one line says you're asking for 104.
That's the total it asked for.
Richmond
Which
and
would
Hopkinton
be
and.
52
That's
from each
the
of
whole
them is what we're
Just
asking
close out
for.
Hopkinton, not Richmond.
Okay. Oh, so the top line is the total line, A
Yes,
is the total line?
that's the way I interpreted the form, so that's the numbers I
Okay,
used.
all
Yeah,
right.
that's fine.
Now, I might misinterpret
No,
that.
All right, thank you.
No, what I was gonna ask you is there a possible solution to this dilemma with the feds requiring, if you volunteer and you can't get paid and volunteer too? Could Senator Reed, Jack Reed help?
I doubt it. In all honesty, I think it would take a national,
But maybe it should be, because, well, I don't know, just this little town in New England is having this issue, and obviously it must be happening all over.
It
And-
is.
And if George H.W. Bush was here, he'd say 1,000 points alike. Well, he pushed volunteerism.
yes.
Presidents have over the years from time to time, and volunteerism is everything. And
I
it's
agree
been
with you.
everything.
It's been a
It's
strong
been
belief.
everything for
It's-
years,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
been
all
a
of a
strong
sudden.
belief in my family. I mean, not only did I volunteer at the ambulance squad, but I volunteered with my church. I volunteered with Boy Scouts for many years. I believe in volunteerism.
Do you have some paperwork, a letter from is it the Federal Department of Labor, is that what it was?
That's who challenged us. And
Do you have some document that notes this, that I could have if we want to try to?
I don't.
See if there's,
I don't.
you don't have anything?
This was our understanding when we left the meeting, that this is what we had to do.
And it was a meeting where it went?
They came to our building and went through all our
Who's they?
records.
Who's they?
The Department of
Department of Labor. The State Department of Labor, the federal?
State.
Actually, no, it was a federal, because if it had been state, the ruling might have been slightly different, probably in a worse way.
Yeah, I agree.
That's encouraging.
Because the federal recognized that we could pay a higher rate for daytime and a minimum wage rate for the off times. The federal did say we could do that, and that is one of the things we're working on. Now, that's not going to go over big with the people, but they got to also understand that for our survival, this is what we have to do. Now, when we do this, we have tried to relax. During the day, we can control where they are and stuff. In other words, you have to be on a call at the building or having a dinner break. At nighttime, we can let them respond from home and stuff.
Do you know if that change came from the General Assembly, or was it the Department of Health that made that ruling? Was that an internal one, do you happen to know?
That was the Department
General
of
Assembly?
Labor, somebody,
Department of
not
Labor.
from our, well, somebody triggered it. And as with anything in the government, the triggering agent does not have to be announced.
Right.
We all have our suspicions who triggered it, but we don't know. But it was triggered by a call from the local saying we're not paying minimum wage. They came in and investigated, and through that investigation, that's when it was announced that you couldn't volunteer, unless it was two separate things. Once again, my wife could be paid as the clerk and volunteer as a responder. But it had to be two distinct jobs. She could not respond daytime and get paid, and nighttime not get paid.
But I think some of that was established because people were being forced into volunteerism so that people didn't have to pay them, the bosses.
That's the basis of the ruling.
Which is
That's the
really where it
basis of the
came from.
law, yes.
So I don't mind the ruling, but it is a difficulty. And you
Yes.
certainly have handled it the very best. Both ambulances have tried to do. That is the reason for the ruling, and I understand that.
Yeah, and it's been hard to live with, but we are attempting to.
Yeah, because things are abused and then they fix it. Anyway, I'm open to your extra 2,000, and I do hope that you will do very well. You stay till December this year, though.
I joined on for a 2-year term
Good, there
a
you see.
year ago, so
So we
I'm
get you for all through December.
I'm here for the rest of this year, but it's been tough. Say my wife has been in the hospital for a number of weeks, and so I'm not getting the time to spend down there to do the bookkeeping that I need to do.
Yeah, but you know, you've been part of Hope Valley Ambulance for so long, I'm sure you have a lot of friends.
I do.
And people who are with you, and, you know.
That's a fact.
And
I
I
mean,
think that's wonderful, because that's part of volunteerism too.
it is.
Is
No,
getting
I've
a
got-
family that supports.
I have multiple families, and the ambulance is
Yeah.
one of my favorite ones. My church is my second favorite one, and it's,
Yeah.
yes,
It's meaningful.
and their support has been there for me.
It's good for everybody.
Give Elaine my regards.
Thank
She's
you.
been on the trail for a long time.
Yeah.
Richard, go ahead, Sylvia.
I was just going to say, as you know, in Ashway, they were having difficulties covering other shifts other than the first shift, and so they asked the taxpayers of the Ashway Fire District if they would designate an amount, which was $50,000, to assist with the ambulance. And so the Ambulance and Ashway Association ended up sending out a document, a card saying, because of that $50,000 donation, we're not going to do the membership anymore. So what I was, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, now I don't know if it just, so now everybody in Ashway, if they have insurance and they need the ambulance, they're not going to have to pay a copay because they
Yes.
became a member through this other means. And I don't know how much money you make when you send out your cards. Is it worth it to you to go to the fire station and say, we would like an amount from the taxpayers from Richmond and from the taxpayers in Hopkinton for the Hope Valley ambulance, just like, and then you don't have to do the membership anymore. So I was just wondering.
$50,000.
I was just
We
wondering.
brought in about 50,000
About
for the
50.
membership, so to us,
It's a lot.
yeah, but the fire district giving up 50, it's a break-even point, and it's not a break-even to a lot of people's
But the
advantages.
50, was that including Hopkinton and Richmond, or Hope Valley and Richmond? That 50 that's raised?
That's what we bring
So you
in
might
pretty
bring
much
in
for our subscribers.
100,000 if you did the tax thing. It'd be 50 from Richmond and 50 from Hope Valley Fire District.
That's a big what if.
Very unlikely.
Oh, no, I
You
just,
know, she has a
it's
good
a
point.
point.
I know what you're saying.
Well, because it's not 50,000 taken from the fire district, they add to their prior tax. So
There's
it's an
even-
addition, not.
And George will agree with me on this, we've actually talked about whether it would be feasible to put in a medical district. I don't know.
Mhm.
I would like to think it would make my job a lot easier, but I'm not sure if we could get it through the voters, because my understanding is the town councils would have to endorse it, and the voters would have to vote favorably for that to happen.
It might be possible. It is, we've had issues for the last couple of years. It is crucial that you exist, and you exist well, so you can serve the town. It may be the right time to talk about it, because Sylvia is right.
Yeah.
I think it worked well in Ashaway. I have not heard any complaints about it. And it is not taking away from fire. It is adding so that you start dovetailing. And that might be a great benefit.
Well, if that was
I mean,
the
it's worth
case,
looking at.
and I'm not against it by any means, then we would have to ask the towns for not only an endorsement, but for legal assistance to accomplish
You have to
this.
approach the fire districts and,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
We
not,
gotta make sure we don't step on their
Right,
toes.
exactly,
it's not that easy.
exactly.
It would not be an easy
Well,
task.
it wouldn't be done like that, but
No.
maybe over the next year, maybe it's a possibility. And we
Well-
don't know if Ashway's planning on continuing, I don't know.
It's,
But I don't think the Ashway ambulance had to ask permission of the town council to have the fire district.
yeah, but they're not in a separate district, that's the difference.
Well, the thing,
We would be thinking of creating a district because of the way we overlap all the districts.
With Richmond.
Would Richmond, Carolina would be one segment of the population, Hope Valley, Wyoming would be a segment of the population. We would be,
Yeah, a little more complex.
it would be much more complex,
Yeah.
because whose toes are you going to step on with this and
That
that?
may be worth looking at.
I won't disagree, and I do think that might be a good direction
It's
to
in the
look,
21st century, maybe.
but we would need
there's a way
help
of doing
with that.
Now, you don't, when you say Carolina, you don't cover, you only cover the Richmond, Carolina. You don't cover the Charlestown, Carolina.
We only cover this side of the river, yes,
All right.
yes.
Hey, Richard,
Although we do a lot of mutual aid over to the other side of the bridge.
I know you've been taxed and all, I got this, it's kind of like almost like a 3-year, 3-year budget, like, it's like a profit and loss. Do you have one that's a little easier to read, because it seems like it balances out? Do you have like an unaudited P&L, you can say, income and expenses? Can you?
I can certainly send you one.
Yeah, just an unaudited P&L for last year, that's all.
I think that is on there, but you gotta figure out which column it's in.
Well, it's all,
Because the budget request, I do balance, because it's, I
well,
think,
that's
the
what
way
I'm
we
looking
write the
at,
budget.
but
But
when
what
we-
we actually profit and loss is in a column. And part of the problem is the way our tax fiscal years cross. I gave you a partial year, because ours is January to December 31st. But because I had to have it in, I believe November and December got left off.
it's just not, it doesn't seem like the traditional one I'm used to seeing. I mean, I just want income and expenses. And like I said,
I
these
can
columns,
certainly print
these
you out.
columns add up and they match, so it looks like you're fine. So, you're speaking about, payroll issues and whatnot, so maybe we
Well,
can chat.
that's why our budget is not 100% accurate, because I didn't discover some of this until November is when I started seeing the trend. And that's why I'm said right up front that our budget is not accurate, because I saw this trend starting in November and continuing.
I see. Okay, well, that explains it, okay.
And the trend had probably been going on before, but I'm not a financial expert.
You've done a pretty good job.
I'm a machine repair technician by trade.
We need Sharon.
We'd love to have her volunteer.
Oh, please. Sorry, dear.
Actually, I've been talking to a young lady who lived in Hope Valley and has just moved up to Warwick, but I was talking to her just last weekend. And there's a possibility that I'm going to be able to talk her into coming back to fill upon my shoes. She works for one of the large banks and obviously has the abilities.
Yes,
I have been in talk with her.
Get married and bring some nice man down here.
She's already got a nice man that works at that new industry over there at the, by the movement center.
There.
They both live in town here, they got a beautiful
That's
little
good.
girl.
Did she move into the neighborhood? It's a great
Well, I'm
thing.
trying to talk them back, believe me.
Excellent, excellent.
All right, so I guess you guys,
Put you on the trail.
what do you want to do, just talk about it Wednesday like everything,
Yeah.
everything else is? Okay. Well, anyway, I assume we're going to give you at least 50, that we'll talk about the additional 2,000 in a couple days.
Okay.
But thanks for everything, and thanks for your transparency, Richard. So-
Well, I'm trying to be, I'm never trying to hide anything.
No.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope that maybe next year you can just come to support.
Just to visit.
Just to be
The
there.
biological clock will just wake you up and have you come over.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Good to see you. See you,
Thank
George.
you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ashaway, Eric Perrin. All right. All right, Eric. You want to chat, tell us a couple things, what's happening over there?
Well, I compiled a list a couple weeks ago, actually. I was hoping to make it to a meeting, and every time I came to come up here, we had an ambulance meeting. So anyway, just kind of give a brief overview of our year, actually, 2018. We had 512 runs, a little less than last year. We were at like 540 last year, I believe. We were required mutual aid 35 times. We provided mutual aid 53 of those times, and we had 2 crews out simultaneously. In other words, both of our ambulance was out at the same time on 2 different calls, or it could be the same call, motor vehicle accident, etc. 16 times. We talked about, when employees left. I lost 1 full-time employee this year. He took a 224 shift with Whole Valley ambulance sectors. We're still working for the area, just not with us anymore. He was on a 5-day position, now he works 2 days. But we have filled in, we've hired to date 6, working on 7 per diems now. Trying to fill in at least half of the second shift, while covering on the weekends. So we're trying to backfill with volunteers. Again, we run into the same problem what Valley does. We have more volunteer drivers than we do EMTs. So the hope is to put an EMT on and backfill with a volunteer driver. And that's worked out pretty well for us so far this year. A couple of things happened. We got some some Senate grants the past year. I was able to replace 2 striker stair chairs. These are a folding chair. It look like a wheelchair to most people, except it folds up. They're designed to take people out of second floors, tough areas. The chairs we had were probably 1970 era. They were in really bad shape. These chairs sell for usually, I'm trying to think now, what do we pay? I saved $1,000 each chair. So we purchased 2 brand new chairs this year with some of that grant money. Let's see what else we've done here. One of our ambulances was involved in a hit and run recently. Our crew was out at the 184 exchange, and a gentleman decided, who was in front of them at a stop sign, decided to put his truck in reverse and back into the front end of our ambulance and then take off. Unfortunately, we didn't find him in time to get him for drunk driving, but we did catch him on camera. Subsequently, the ambulance has been fixed. It's all back in service. The other thing we were able to do this year is our oldest ambulance was a 2001 ambulance, 17 years old. I was able to secure a 2011 ambulance this year from a local fire department in Connecticut, who the fire chief's a personal friend of mine. I was able to purchase this ambulance for $40,000. As your Whole Valley just spent just over $200,000. Charleston ambulance just spent $242,000 on their ambulance. One of the problems we talk about is the new load systems, they have a power load system, so any new ambulance you buy now has to have a power load system. The power load system adds $50,000 to the cost of the base ambulance, just for the power stretcher load system. So anyone who's buying those, you know, so I bought a new ambulance, well, a 10-year newer ambulance, so that's in service as well. And then the other thing that we talk about expenses, we're down in the Department of Health, it came down and inspected our ambulance, and interestingly enough, the gentleman who inspects the ambulances is no longer in that position. He was given a promotion. So as of right now, the Rhode Island Department of Health has nobody to inspect ambulances. They haven't backfilled the position yet. Anyway, he came down when our ambulance came into service, and they changed the protocol at the end of December that required all ambulances to carry a IV heat pack. So it's a bag that plugs into a lighter that keeps IV bags running. So every ambulance has to provide one on each of their rescues. You guys sent that in? Yeah. So to give you an idea, they're $410 each. So we spent $820 this year unexpectedly. And what happens with these is they're unfunded mandates. Federal government doesn't give us any money, state doesn't give us any money. We as a volunteer organization have to spend that money. And we're forced to do so, or our ambulances don't pass inspection. So these are things that, we talk about cost increases, and things aren't going to change, unfortunately, with that fact. So that's kind of an overview of what we've got going on so far right now. Working on some more grants. I just got another Home Depot grant to actually deliver to my mailbox today for $500. So I will be replacing another window in our building, actually, with that money.
I have a question for you. The 2001, excuse me, not that, the 40K purchase that you made, ambulance, what year did you say that was?
2011.
2011.
Yeah.
And how many ambulances do you have in service?
We have 2 ambulances in service.
Okay.
So we actually just sold the 2001 ambulance last week.
I have a question.
Yes,
I just have a question. On the power load, do all the ambulances have that now, both in
No.
Valley and in Ashway? No, you do not, but you have one, Ashway?
No, we don't have one.
Our newest one is it's not a full power load, but it met the regulation in that it's like a track going in so that it can't be misloaded. They make a power load as well, which is a lot more expensive. Ours got in under the
You got in under the
transition
radar.
guidelines.
And so none of you actually have that.
Yeah,
power load.
Wesley ambulance, for instance, just what 4 of them.
Okay.
What they did is the DOT came down and said that the stretcher systems have to meet a crash test. So all stretchers have a track system. These actually have a system that locks the stretcher in much more aggressively, as well as all of the seat belts in the new trucks that came out. This is all parts of that $50,000. Because when you get in your car and you buckle up, it beeps, and you haven't put your seatbelt on. Well, now all of the people in the back of the ambulance have to be buckled in, which becomes tough if you're doing CPR in the back of the ambulance.
Oh, yeah.
So usually you're in the back of the ambulance doing 80 miles an hour, hanging on and trying to do one compression. It's a little more difficult. So yeah, these are things that we've grown up with that most people don't see.
I think the concern has been, and I wasn't on the council when this was established, but the ambulance corps was supposed to file ongoing financial reportings to the town manager, also ongoing records of.
It's 3 quarters, July, October, and January, so maybe give this to Eric. It's checked off. You really should have Sue do this, Eric.
Yeah, sure.
We never received
Oh, you haven't
anything.
received it? Oh, okay.
We're 0 for 3.
Huh?
We're 0 for 3. July, October, and
Okay.
January, quarters. We
Oh,
never
I thought
got
they
this.
got sent, my apologies. I
No,
didn't know.
it's not,
If I had known, I
it's
would've-
really, Sue
Yeah.
Gentile needs to do
Yeah.
that, so
Okay.
that's number 1, that's good, sorry.
No, it's just, he's got a copy of the same paperwork that I have, so I have no further comment. Just
I thought that was being sent.
No,
I did not Was not aware of
As
that.
far as I know, Bill, it has not
Okay.
been received by your office
Okay.
or finance.
I haven't received any paperwork at all in the last 9 months, actually.
Okay. I thought that was, my apologies, I didn't know that
No
was.
worries.
Okay.
I have a question, because I got a couple calls there, and maybe with Hope Valley being in the audience too, I'm trying to wrap my head around, if you don't have folks pay for a subscription, right, that you got money from the district, you say, okay, the folks are not gonna have to pay. So, but if an ambulance comes to my house, and I haven't paid a subscription, and my insurance sends me a copay, who's gonna pay for that? You know, normally what happened before, I had a subscription, my wife had to go to the ambulance because she got her finger stuck in the garage door. I had the subscription and that, I didn't get a copay, a co-share of the insurance. So I'm a little bit nervous and suspect as to how that's gonna work out when someone has an ambulance run from their house.
In Ashway, you mean?
Yes.
Right, they don't
How-
pay. How did that?
Well, yeah, but who's gonna pay that? Because the insurance company's not gonna say, oh geez, by the way, I didn't know, you have a side agreement with the Ashway ambulance, we're not gonna charge it. They're gonna charge it. Somebody's gonna have to pay it, whether it's you folks or the customer. So I'm just a little nervous. I'm thinking, personally, my thoughts on all this is keep the subscriptions. It adds about 17,000 to your income, which you need, right? And just keep it the same as it was. That's my thoughts, but anyway, to
So
answer my
we
question.
did not do that this year. We did have discussion about whether to keep it or not. We brought in about 11,000, I think, last year in subscriptions.
It was almost 17, I think.
I think it was about, and maybe I'm wrong, but.
It says 16,735.
So the situation was that the people paying the subscription rate, which, so I'd have to do the math on how many people that is, at $50 a head, but that those people would be not only paying their $50 there, but then they'd be taxed from the fire district as well, so they'd be double. So some of the people would be
Triple.
taking the hit twice. So we figured if we got 50,000 from the fire district, that we'd be better off in the long run going that route, which we did. And then we mailed the same mailing out that we did a subscription, sent a nice letter out to everybody explaining. So basically everybody becomes a member, so to speak, or a subscriber, I shouldn't say a member. That was a big confusion last year. Again, it's one of those things that we as an organization said, let's try this year to see how it goes. I don't have the final numbers. How's it going to work out in the long run?
Well, so, but the issue is, if you're a member or a subscriber, or you live in Ashway and they did the 50K, everybody in Ashway that's a member or lives in Ashway and calls an ambulance is not going to pay copay. That's how it works.
So it's not
If
so much
you're a
a
membership-
copay. Copay is the wrong terminology.
Well, the insurance will pay them out, and then there's
Exactly.
something left over, so we won't call it,
Yeah,
there's something left over. Are
yeah.
you going to mail that bill to the Ashway ambulance? Ashway
No,
people?
we don't.
No, you're not, because you
Right.
told them you
Right.
wouldn't.
Exactly.
So that's the
Yeah,
difference.
but my only concern with that theory is, they say, you know, they're not gonna mail a supplemental bill.
Right.
But then the insurance company say, hey, Frank, you haven't paid this.
No,
They're gonna be looking for me.
no, the insurance company,
Trump- so
the
the-
insurance company doesn't continue to send bills. They give you a notice, an
If they don't
EOB,
pay it,
they
and
send
an
you-
EOB. The
If you don't
insurance,
pay
you don't pay the insurance company, you pay the provider, who is the ambulance.
So we have a billing company that sends a bill to your insurance company. So the
Right.
insurance company, and like O'Malley said, we can send out a bill for $1,100, $1,200.
You make it
The average, you know what our average is?
300.
Not even. Try 220. 220 is our average income per call last year. Because you've got some that don't pay anything, and you might get $50 from one. There is no, so these people that say, well, geez, you're billing $3,000 for a call, you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not the case. We make an average of $220 a call right now. I did the math last month. So, but we don't, our billing company will send out a bill if you have no insurance. Like O'Malley said, the people that don't have the money get billed again. But if your insurance company pays X number of dollars, that's
So
what we
you're
accept.
saying your billing company or whatever you call
We have a
it.
billing company that handles all
Okay,
this.
they're not gonna send out a supplemental.
Unless you have no insurance. If you have no insurance, it's a different
Well, the
story.
chances, I mean, there's chances someone might not have insurance right now.
So they go to collections.
Okay.
And that happens, and we get calls from people, and then it becomes, we look at hardship. So we have to decide as an organization, and most of the time we take it on the chin. I mean, if someone says, geez, my grandfather's dying, I mean, what do you do? If someone has no money, how do you take them to small claims court and have them pay $3 a month? So there's a lot of money that gets written off that we just don't ever collect on, and you're not ever gonna collect on.
And I think that's also one of the reasons that there are volunteer ambulances, is that, you know, basically they're really dealing at the local level. They're dealing with people who are their neighbors, because we're not that big a town.
Oh, it's not a big town.
Well,
I mean, to answer, another question, Sylvia, you asked about the volunteer versus what you need to look up is FLSA, so the Federal Standard Labor Act, and that's, I mean, you find it all over the web. They've got a full website and stuff like that. That is what determined paid versus volunteer. As a matter of fact, I mean, I'm going back a number of years, but Ashland Ambulance took a hit of probably $25,000 or $30,000 going back, I'm going to say 10 years. It was a president, vice president, and treasurer of the organization at the time. I've always been a member, but I was uninvolved at the time. And they did a standby over a snowstorm at the building. And they decided that, again, these were volunteer positions. I'm not a stipend position, treasurer, volunteer, I've never been paid. They decided that they should be paid $15 an hour for their services. And sent a bill that the ambulance said, we're not paying this, you're volunteers. They went to the Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor granted them the money. So that's why some of these laws are in place. So it's a hindrance, but it also protects us at the same time. I've seen, and like I said, West Ambulance went through the same thing, where somebody said, geez, I was working as a volunteer, so I went on a call for an hour and then decided, well, the call took 5 hours, I want to be paid now. And you're not allowed to do that anymore. And that's where that problem comes in.
I do have a question. I had some concerns about check cashing in check. How often does the ambulance corps go to the bank? Is it once a month? Is all the things paid within a month, or once a month? Or how promptly
So we have a company we use out of Westerly that does all of our bookkeeping. So they handle all of our checks, our billing. I shouldn't say our billing. Our medical billing is under another company called Dawson Group. But all of our regular billing is done by a company out of Westerly. Any check that comes in that needs to be deposited is deposited on usually a weekly basis. So if it comes in and I'm made aware of it, depending on where it comes to the building or our field box. Comes to the building, I check my mailbox there. If it comes to the billing, the company using Wesley, they email me or call me and say, I've got a check that needs to be deposited. And I just swing in there and go to the bank and then drop off the deposit slips to them right after I go to the bank. So that happens pretty much weekly.
Thank you.
yeah, I think we had that problem last year, and I think that's been solved.
Wasn't last year, it was probably the prior year. I know there was a kind of a labor gap there, yeah. Well, there was certainly before I stepped in, there was certainly some issues there.
Right. And I'm very happy that was solved.
So I wondered if you have decided about the 50,000, are you going to ask the fire district again for another 50? Have you figured that out?
More than likely, yes. The only way to keep trying to grow shift position, in other words, cover more shifts with EMS, is to have that money. With a call volume of 500, we're never going to see, you're looking at $100,000 there. You're never ever going to see enough money come in from runs to support 3 shifts. And again, we're working with strictly volunteer, like we have a paid crew administrator. So paid crew administrator he's responsible for the paid crew, but he's not a paid position, it's a volunteer position. So he's responsible to fill shifts. Someone calls out sick, he has to fill that void. So he's a guy that has a full-time job, family. So he's responsible for that position. It's like our chief, our president, nobody gets paid for those positions. So to keep growing, I think that we're going to need that, we're going to need that income. The other thing I think Sharon asked was about, or maybe Bob asked about districting. The only fire district, I believe, don't quote me, in the area that is liable for EMS is Ashway. So the only one that has it in their charter for life safety. Wesley Fire does not. I don't believe Hope Valley does. I might be wrong. So to go forward to get, to create a district, either the fire district would have to step in and say, we're responsible for this and fund it, or the town would have to change their charter to do so. And then they would, like I said, you'd be on the hook for, a building and 3 shifts and ambulances, which Frank's shaking his head, it's not gonna happen. How many millions of dollars you're looking at? So that's why the fire district didn't really have to check with anybody, because they are ultimately responsible in the town of Ashway. But again, most ambulance corps at this end of the state, and again, there's only 4 of us left that are not affiliated with the fire department. Hope Valley, Ashway, Charleston, and Wesley. So they work in the towns, basically at the town's will. In other words, they're allowed to operate, but there's no governing body. The towns don't govern what the ambulance corps do. And they can't, because there's no control from a charter standpoint. There's no real oversight. Where Ashway has it in their charter, Ashway Fire has it in their charter to do so. And it's something we've talked about for a long time. But the fire departments don't want it. The guys in the fire department are like, we don't want to handle this. Because what happens then is, do you have a part-time ambulance service? How many years ago was it when we had a part-time police department? So we're all, working on trying to get more crews out and do the best we can with limited funding.
And the only way to get crews out is to have them paid and funded.
To some degree. Like the guys from Hope Valley said, these guys.
It's all going to be.
Well, and you say, well, geez, I could volunteer my time where I could get paid. And you start, at what point do you say, geez, and we're trying that right now. We're trying to say, look, if you guys want to stay at the building overnight, we're going to pay you a flat rate of $30 to stay here. And if you take a call, you get another, $50. So you can make, $80 maybe a night if there's a call. If not, you're making $30. We're seeing a little bit of action, but again, we're trying to fill voids without getting into a budget crunch. I mean, you run out of money, then we need to. It's not like we can come back and say, geez, Hopkinton, we need another 50 grand if we run out of money. That doesn't happen. So we don't have someone to turn to. We have to live, we're trying to live within our means.
Yes, sir.
So, I have a question. Where did they get the $40,000 to pay for the new ambulance?
I took out a loan. Got to start building.
Is it on your 2018 financial statement? I didn't see it.
No, because we just got it. It's in 2000. We just bought it in the new year, actually.
2018.
2019.
Yeah, but, I've been, it was Exeter, but the emergency service got whacked several years ago in Exeter. What they did is, at town meetings, so what they did was, they went out and established a special district, which is coextensive with the whole area of Exeter, and the ambulance corps and the 2 fire associations are covered by that special district, and they don't get any money from the town government. So that's how that was circumvented in Exeter several years ago.
They tax for it.
They have tax
So
authority,
they tax for the fire and ambulance together.
but that fire district is coextensive with town borders, and I think that's the only place in Rhode Island that does that.
It does what? Fire ambulance?
I believe, yes.
We're the only ones down here that don't.
Yeah, well, the town of Exeter, they had a budget crunch, and the emergency services got whacked, so what I understand their response was they started a special district, which had the same boundaries as the town, and they plugged the 2 fire departments in Exeter and the ambulance. As I understand it, I'll stand corrected if I'm...
No, I mean, and I think that's what we're all heading. I hate to say it, but I've been saying this for 15 years. I've been having this conversation every year with the fire chiefs in the area that at some point, we're gonna get to that point, and I hate to say we're there,
I think so.
we're there. So, someone said, well, what would it cost to open an ambulance? Well, if you open an ambulance, you'd have to absorb Whole Valley and Richmond, I don't know what they would do. So let's say we had and what did North Side do just, on that building?
They get, North Sunny pretty much gets funded by the town, and town of North Sunny gives them significant amount of money.
But they built a new building. So they built a $5 or $6 million building. They just put a new ambulance last week that was $240,000. And then you have to fund it, you have to have a chief and a paid crew administrator and crews 24/7, 365. Then you have to, there's, all these other things and benefits, and you start looking at an annual, never mind an outlay of cash, of probably $6 or $7 million piece of property and put a building up and then buy ambulances, and then you probably have a budget of a couple $1 million a year.
I mean, I really
In
think
payroll.
it is time, this is the 21st century.
Yeah.
I think the ambulances and the fire departments really do need to get together as a single unit.
But it's not, but again, it's not as cut and dry. We're the only ones, actually, it's the only town set up right now to do that to some degree because of the charter. And that's, the problem is the charter takes, I think, and I don't know all the ins and outs, but the charter takes at least a year to change, and it's gotta be taxpayer approved.
It's legislative approval.
Yeah, but but the taxpayers have to get behind it and say, well, how much is it gonna be? And so, and how do you say to someone, well, geez, we're gonna do a charter change, and we're gonna fund the ambulance, but we're only gonna fund it X, so you're gonna have first and second shift. So you people on third shift, well, we'll catch up with you if we can.
But I don't think you can do that, but at some point, the fire and the ambulance, because it's just health and safety of everyone, the town as a unit has to be cared for as a unit. And I know that we've been split for years, but it really may be time to start thinking of how you dovetail. And I know it's difficult, but I don't see how going forward by 2050, you're going to be still two separate units. I just don't see it happening.
But who's buying the property, who's putting the building up?
Even if you kept your buildings separately, but you still ran as a unit.
Because you
You can keep your buildings completely separate. It doesn't make any difference if they're in two sides of
the
town.
districts would have to combine.
It's just your administration stays with the unit.
But I think too, when you get to that level, then you have to have paid administration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where the money starts, you want to be administrative. But a chief of a paid department now, $80,000 to $100,000 a year plus benefits in the vehicle. So that's where you start, Sharon's going, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So we've avoided a lot of that.
If this is my first time through this, but is my understanding, are you talking about if you combine the ambulance with the local fire department, then the fire district can tax the residents to cover your costs?
Correct.
Correct. So ultimately, we're talking about an increase in taxes, not for the town, but the fire district.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why we started with the $50,000, which was, it was like $25 a household average. So we thought, instead of a few people paying $50 a year, they're paying $25 a year in their taxes, and they're getting the same coverage. And we're able to actually increase our coverage somewhat. Is it 100%? No. And we're working on it every day. And it's tough. You bring in new staff, new volunteers, we have to train them. We have to go through driver training. You have to be, even if they're an EMT and sit around, they still have to go through our trucks and learn how we do things.
But the only advantage is if you itemize, you can deduct the fire tax.
Oh, sure.
Whereas you can't do anything with you work in the town.
That's true.
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. So when you got the $50,000 from the fire district, did you actually hire a second shift? Or
Not full-time, no.
Oh, okay.
So what we've done is we've
I thought that was what
backfilled,
the money was.
we're using the money for that. But it wasn't just a matter of putting a second shift on, we wanted to get some bodies on the weekends too. So we're doing some second shift and some weekend, so we're getting more coverages. We look at and we look at this every month, like, what are the calls, what time? So we actually moved our first shift from, they used to come at 7, now they come at 6, they do 6 to 2 now. Because we were finding a lot of people kind of wait till they wake up in the morning and go, I don't feel good. And it's not 7 o'clock, they were calling it 6:02. So again, you look at the numbers every month and say, you know, where do we need to have our paid crew? Where's the call volume coming from? So that's,
You know, convention and thinking is that since Hopkins is a bedroom community, most people work outside the town, that they have more runs during at night because people are back home from being out of town working. I mean, that would be the logical thought, really.
it's not the way, unfortunately, it's not the way it
And
works.
it's also, we have so many elderly, we have elderly and seniors and fixed income, and widows, and they're all retired, so they're home for that.
Those 15 townhouse used to be the, you
It's a
know,
lot more.
every day, and it's been,
Quieter.
yeah, I don't like to use that word, but it's been less busy. We went there yesterday, I think we would have called, but yeah, I mean, there was a while there, it was like, you know, and I think what happens is there's 1 or 2 patients that require an ambulance every couple of days. And I hate to say it, they depart this world, and you bring it, there's an influx of people and things like that, so.
Eric, also too, I guess, you know, I know Richard spoke about, you know, the extra payroll expense that they're having. I imagine if they're having it, you are having it as well.
And that's why we secured the other $50,000. That was the rationale behind it. Because the $50,000 that the town's given us over the years doesn't cover
Yeah, right.
Monday through Friday 1 shift.
No.
We've always exceeded that 50,000 by, and it's taxes and things. So we'd be, you know, 50,000, we'd be at like $55,000 or $56,000. So we don't even, with the 100,000, we still don't have enough to cover a full second shift. So what we try to do is put people in place that, you know, we get better coverage. You know, so we got, you know, so we got a guy coming in at, you know, 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon, working until 11 o'clock at night. And we're finding that usually we get a driver. You know, after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can usually get a volunteer driver out. Or if the guys run in the fire department, and that's what's interesting about our town, is even if one of the assistant chiefs is on a call, a medical call, hey, I can get an EMT to you, but I need someone to drive me else to the hospital. A lot of times, one of the fire department guys, who are also members of the ambulance corps, even if they're on the fire truck, will say, yeah, I can take the truck in. So we've got some flexibility there. Guys that'll step up and say, you know, and what happens is a lot of those guys don't want to do the paperwork out of it. There's a lot of paperwork with an ambulance run now. Used to be, you know, a half-hour ambulance call takes you 3 hours now. Just the paperwork.
Just a couple quick comments on some of the financials. On the 2018 profit and loss, you guys showed, you know, more income with less from the district and the town. So if you look at 2018's profit and loss, it's the net income is, well, it's not much, but it's $1,700. Oh, sorry, it's $1,200. I'm sorry, 2018 is $25,000 net income. And then this year you have more money, I'm talking about 2019, from the town and the district, and you're showing, excluding depreciation, a net income of $1,200. So I guess my point is, you seem to do more, have better profitability with less income last year. That's 2018. I'm a little nervous, you know, again, when you got 50 from us, 50 from the district, fire district, if you didn't get that 50 from the fire district, you'd show a loss of about $49,000.
Yeah.
Not counting the debt service for the new truck
Yeah.
or ambulance, whatever it is. So it's concerning. You know, I think personally, you guys should probably think about merging. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not something you want to hear, but I don't know how it's sustainable. You know, I mean, where does it end? These guys.
Where's it sustainable? The fire district has to step in Ashland. Hope Valley.
Oh, right, I'm saying, but even with Hope Valley, I mean.
They don't have the same ability we do. The fire district in Hope Valley does not have an inner charter.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, I'm just.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
But a lot of it might change the charter.
Yeah, like I said, I think at some point, we seriously need to look at charter changing. I've said, like I said, I've said this for I've had this conversation for 15 years, that it needs to be changed. But even some of the guys in the fire department, the older guys don't want to see a crossover. They don't want it. The fire chief doesn't want to handle EMS in this town, most towns. They don't want to be taxed with that. Because then it would be a full-time fire chief in this town. I'm not saying they're wrong, Frank, in any way, shape, or form. I wish I had a good answer. I wish I had a good answer, and I don't. But it's like, you know, where do you come up with more money? And, you know, you go out and get grants. We just got a grant. We got $1,000 on people. We got $500. I just got a Senate grant for $2,000. You know what I do with that money? You know, $2,000. I can't even buy a stair chair. You know, I just spent $820 on 2 pieces of equipment that are, in my mind, a complete waste of money. Because they're going to keep IV bags warm. So, IVs stay warm in the ambulance because the ambulance is inside of the building. And if you want to warm them up, you put hot packs on them. But the state, someone at the state level said, geez, you need to have these. And we have to have them. So if something else comes down the pike, and this is what's eating up the small guys, is these unfunded mandates.
Yeah, I mean, where's it end though? I mean, like I said, I think it ends where you have to start looking at consolidation. I think it's like any business. If it's not sustainable on your own, you either have to merge or to grow your economy of scale and just be able to survive, you know,
So let's let some more business in the town of Hopkinton.
What's that?
Let's let some more business into the town of Hopkinton.
I'm all ears
Yeah,
for
you know,
that.
like I
Not
said,
taking any arguments on me.
no, not, like I said,
Not from us.
no.
Yeah.
But there are some that still want to keep it, you know,
No, I
it's a
realize
catch-22.
But that's unsustainable too.
Yeah.
But that's unsustainable.
Yeah.
And so you really, at some point, have to get together and think outside the box and change the charter and make it work.
Yeah.
Because he's absolutely right.
See, we don't have to. Ashford doesn't have to change the
I
charter.
know,
No, right.
But Hope Valley does, if we're gonna make this work as a town,
Sure,
as an entire town.
I agree.
So, and
Yes,
that's
sir.
getting all your young ones.
You all set, Bob?
Yes, I have, thank you.
Okay. I had a couple of questions. Like right now, how many paid personnel do you have on the second shift?
1,
For the whole second shift?
yes,
For
1 paid.
7 days a week?
Yes.
And how do you run an ambulance with just one person?
We rely on volunteers to fill in the other, to drive the ambulance. We can't afford it any other way.
The person that's on that shift, is that an EMT, a driver, or what?
EMT.
EMT.
Yeah. It's EMT basic or above.
And that's a paid position?
That's a paid position.
The other question I have is that, when are we going to start receiving the reports that were indicated?
So I thought you were getting those, and my apologies. I did not know you weren't receiving those. I thought that was all set.
Eric, maybe call Sue and.
I'll take care of it tomorrow. I was really, if I had gotten an email and said, "Gee, I haven't received it," I would have gotten on it right away. I did not know that. I hadn't heard from anyone in the town, so I assumed everything was,
That's not our obligation.
I'm not saying it was. Again, I just thought that was being taken care of.
Bill, do you have a card on you? By
Yeah,
chance?
I do, yeah.
Give Eric the card and it's got, I assume it's got your email.
The other thing is, Susan will handle the financial reporting, but the other 2 reporting are 2 different people. Because I worked with this. One was the young gentleman,
Yeah.
number 7 was a young gentleman who was doing that, and I believe past chief was doing the correspondence to and from if there was anything.
Yeah, there's been
and
no
maybe there are
correspondence.
none. There may not be
Yeah,
any
there's no
copies of
cor-
any reporting and correspondence,
Yeah.
but I think that was one of your past chiefs.
Yeah.
So those are 3 different people
Okay.
that are supposed to do that, not just Susan, she's not the only one.
No, the ongoing, yeah.
So maybe you could ask them about
I
that.
have a list of call, yeah. I
And
can
maybe,
provide that.
especially if you haven't received any correspondence, then at least a letter saying there is no correspondence.
Yeah,
X, Y.
You know, just, I mean, the Department of Health is, interestingly enough, we had to actually, like, beg someone to come down and inspect our ambulance. That's how kind of rough shape they're in up there.
But
They, like I said, they,
that's
yeah.
the correspondence from them, they wanted
Yeah.
copies of, but I don't think that you necessarily have any, but I believe that was nice.
Yeah.
And
So you can have correspondence with them?
I'm
They
sorry.
pass this new protocol with these bags. They don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
They don't even send an email out to the chiefs and say, oh, by the way, we've changed protocol. They expect us to review their protocols weekly to see if there's been changes made. That's how kind of backwards things are. And then they come down and inspect and go, oh, by the way, you don't pass inspection because you didn't.
You didn't read the memo.
Yeah, you didn't read the memo, you know, so it's kind of
And that's
crazy.
because you need a full-time administrator. to do
Well,
it.
you know, I spend enough hours doing this
Yeah,
stuff,
well,
like
you're volunteering.
running around, yeah, every week.
Thanks.
Well, as you know, or may not know, we're in a tough budget year.
I'm aware.
Our mill rate's already up 83 cents or
The
so.
school district is,
Yeah,
crushing
and
it.
state aid and schools.
And tax base.
So,
I'm aware.
So, you know, we'll, like we've told everyone else, I think that's come before us, that we'll chat about it on Wednesday and make our determination. I assume we at least level fund it, but we'll see.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Eric?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Mr. Phillips?
Good evening, everyone. I think almost all of you know me. It is, I don't think we've met before. Thank you for serving on this council. So the Community 2000 Education Foundation is now 20 years old. We are an all-volunteer 501c3. We started in 2000 with 2 $1,000 scholarships, and with the idea of giving scholarships and ultimately giving educational project grants in the Charro Regional School District. This past year we gave 32 $1,900 scholarships, and that's what we are budgeting to give in 2019. So in 2015, our board set a goal of getting our scholarship endowment to $1.4 million. $1.4 million at 5% return gives you $70,000 a year. That's $35,000 to $2,000 scholarships. So that's where we are headed. When we get to that $1.4 million, we will disappear. We will not be in front of you any longer. And what we'll do then with the money that we raise in a given year is that we'll either give more scholarships or larger dollar amount scholarships, or what we'll probably do in the beginning is start spending more money on educational project grants. So last year and this year we're going to spend about $60,000 on scholarships, $25,000 on educational project grants, and about $15,000 on student awards. There are 2 kinds of student awards: the career development awards for kids who've done a great job with their electronic portfolio and making a career decision. And last spring we started a Mattie Potts endowment. So we gave 2 $1,000 Mattie Potts Spirit of Community Leadership Awards. And we're about halfway to raising the $40,000 that will fund those awards in perpetuity. So we give out about $100,000 a year in scholarships, educational project grants, and student awards. Those decisions are made by our board. Our board is 12 people, I think 4 from each of the 3 towns. And we have about another 15 people that serve on either the scholarship committee or the educational project committee. So this year we've asked, as we did last year, for $1,900 from each of the 3 towns. That is basically funding one of the scholarships, so that that will help us get moving forward towards that $1.4 million scholarship endowment goal. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. I went on in a little more detail because Mrs. Davis, you've not heard any of this before, but Scott Bell is an old friend, and most of you have heard me talk for the last 3 or 4 years.
I think this 2018-19 is set to give, I think, 12 scholarships to folks that live in our town.
It varies a little bit each year, and frankly, we don't really pay very much attention to where they come from. So, but it usually evens out. Some years there'll be more in one of the 3 towns than the other, but it generally evens out pretty well
I just
between the 3 towns.
I just identified in your information that you gave us, there were 12 students from our town receiving your scholarship.
And
12 families.
I haven't looked at that lately, to be
Oh, no,
honest with you, so I think you're probably right.
I do, I
We get confused once in a while because Carolina people could be Charlestown or could be Richmond.
Well, these are either
Yeah.
Hope Valley, Ashway, Rockville,
Yes.
so they're all in our town, so there's
Yeah.
a dozen of them. So out of that 32, almost half or so.
It's usually not quite that many, but I'm not
I
surprised.
think it was eight the year before. maybe,
Yeah.
or something like that. Anyway, we're in a difficult budget year, as you may or may not know.
I certainly know that. And I guess the thing that I would say is,
Our friends at Charo.
if you can continue to help us, that means sooner we'll be able to spend more money on educational project grants, which will put money into the school district, helping to keep the school district budget, at a reasonable level. So we love the sort of triple focus of scholarships, educational project grants, predominantly for teachers, and awards to help motivate the students.
Well, we're friendly. I philosophically don't believe in supporting this foundation with taxpayer money. I believe that people should voluntarily do that. They should support the scholarship of their choice of scholarships, and a lot of fine scholarships that many of us buy raffle tickets, we go to dinners and things of that nature. So I don't have a problem with the foundation, but years ago when I was on the council, and I'll stand corrected because I have to look at minutes many years ago, but when this foundation was first started years ago, as I understood it, when we supported it financially, the promise was made it was the only time that we'd be asked for money, if I remember correctly. And it was so many years ago, I could be wrong on that. But
I think, Scott Bill, I think you're right. That was probably in 2000 or 2001. And I think the town of Hopkinton did support us for a year, and then we went away. But when we set that goal of a $1.4 million endowment in 2015, then we started coming back to the three towns and asking, help us get to that stage where we can then go away for good. So I think you're right, Scott Bill.
well, I have a concern philosophically with supporting a private scholarship. There are numerous fine scholarships in our area that students benefit from, and I have a concern with donating to a scholarship. You know, the history of grants and contributions in this town was many years ago, a whole slew of organizations got money, everything from Women's Resource Center, suicide, the youth sports organization, and somebody went into a financial town meeting and cut the budget, and all them things had to go away, including
The
the
town
library.
council actually was the one
Well,
that deleted all of the.
Yeah, the town council did,
The town council did it.
but it had to be based upon a vote of the financial town meeting, so it was done after the financial town meeting to do that. Yeah, but you wasn't in town then, I don't think.
Yeah, but
Been
she's
here
right,
20
she
years
was.
It was the town council that said we have to cut our budget because we just can't survive this way, and it all went away. So it was because of the state aid, $775,000 was cut out of the town budget on July 1st after Charo and the town budgets had passed. And at that time, we were talking about the early 90s, and that was 1/3 of the town's budget. State aid cut after everything settled. Yeah, so it was crazy, so all the nonprofits went away, and all the nonprofit monies that were given out never came back except this core group that you see, and it was basically libraries and ambulance.
And that's because they're only in town.
So that's kind of
But
a short.
I disagree with you on that, but that's fine.
Well, and Scott Bill, I understand your concern.
Yes, Barbara?
I actually, I like the Community 2000 Educational Foundation. I give to it, I think it's great. The problem is I agree with Scott that I don't think that we should be using tax dollars for this. I just don't believe in it, and I haven't supported it for the last several years. I know we pass it, but I have always voted no, because I really believe it's something that is private, it's personal. I think it's a great idea, but it is personal. And I know now you're doing a lot more of the education grants, but we have problems trying to get Charahoe to reduce their budget. And some of those education grants take the teachers out of the classroom. They have to be replaced with substitutes because they are doing something which might be quite wonderful, but we're still paying for it. So I prefer certainly the grants to the students rather than grants to the teachers. But the other question I have is when I was taking a look at it in the 2018 budget, you had a total income of $176,994, but your fundraising expenses total was $36,405, which is 20% of basically the total income, which is really high.
That's basically the cost of running the two golf events.
Yeah, but that's really high.
And
20%.
And we will cut that down in 2019, if you look at the 2019 budget.
Yeah, you cut it down to 28, but you're only bringing in 161. So they've both been cut down. So I think that's something that you probably need to look at. But I'm afraid I'm really with Scott on this. But and I think you're wonderful. I think you do some great work where you're giving out for scholarships. But I just feel like it's something that should be personal.
I understand your feelings.
I think I'm in favor of the organization. I think it's a small amount, even if we level funded, it's $500. You've helped out a dozen families in our community for college education, which is increasingly expensive. I don't think it's a big stretch to support it. And I hear the argument from Scott Barber, private this, private that. Wood River Health is a private organization. We give them $10,000. They help a lot more people, obviously, but this private stuff doesn't wash with me. You know, I think either you like the organization, you like what they do and their mission, and that's it. So I'm in favor of it, to level fund it at 500, but that's me. I may get outvoted, Chris, but
well,
at least you know where I stand.
We understand, and our kids graduate typically with between $30,000 and $120,000 worth of debt. And that's a terrible nut to hang around a kid's neck when he's 21 or 22 years old. So, you know, I'm here hoping that maybe you'll be able to level fund us this year, and if you can, that's wonderful. If you can't, I'll be back next year making the same arguments again. You know, until we get to that 1.4 million, which will totally fund $2,000 scholarships. And for Mrs. Davis, once we start with a kid, we stay with them for his full undergraduate education, the same amount. So, and if he's an engineer or
even pharmacy, you go 6 years.
Pharmacy or engineer or physical therapy major, that's 5 or 6 years. So it can be as much as almost $11,000 or $12,000 that we put into a kid's education. And we just love the whole concept of scholarships, educational project grants, and student awards, especially the new Mattie Potts Awards. So anyway, I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chris. We haven't, I'm sorry, Sylvia.
That's all right.
I'm sorry, more questions?
So basically, we haven't made all our decisions yet on the
Sure.
office, but I'm sorry, Sylvia.
That's all right. I just wanted to point out that I'm also not in favor of this, and ever since this got added, I think 2 years ago, it got added, I wasn't in favor of it then, and it's just my opinion that it doesn't belong in the town budget, you know, it's when you given our history of all those nonprofits, it seemed like there were like 17 of them. It was a very long list, and which was wonderful that we could do that way back. And when that all got kicked out, and it eventually ended up just being the libraries and the ambulance, we had people, there was interest there were other nonprofits that deal with much more, a great, and I know this is entirely different. This is not like any of the other nonprofits. This is different. These are scholarships. But you look at some kind of community action, they're not getting any money. Women's Resource Center. A woman has to leave her home with her kids and hide out somewhere. And how do they afford? Well, you know, we know what's going on in society. These things have always been, it's always been a problem. So you got Women's Resource, you got some kind of community action. I mean, I can't even think of some of the others, but those people are dealing with people who are desperate. And in South Bend community actions, people who just don't have money. And they're not getting a dime. And I think they should, but they're not. And so it's hard for me to support any money going to this when I know that those nonprofits are getting zero. That's where I'm coming from.
Well,
But I appreciate everything.
I understand your position and appreciate you being willing to here and try to make the pitch. And I'll be back next year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
And you'll
Chris.
still get donations.
Yeah, that's nice, Barbie, to send the money that we can't hear.
Yeah, not here, yeah, but I certainly think that it would be perfect.
Neighbors helping neighbors, I don't think they wanted any money.
I'm here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I actually wanted.
$1,000?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I snuck in at the end.
I apologize.
All right. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk to you again this year about Neighbors Helping Neighbors. My name is Mary Gail Smith, and I'm finishing up my 5th year as a board member for Neighbors Helping Neighbors. Our mission is to keep South County families in their homes by providing no-cost home repairs. We are all volunteers. We have no paid staff. We have no building. We work remotely. My late husband, who fancied himself somewhat of a comedian, said that we were remotely working, but that is not true. That is not true. And last year we had 75 applications for help, and we feel that we are preventing homelessness. It's a terrible crisis situation for our communities, and by keeping people in their homes, we're part of the solution. So the 70+ applications that we had last year, we were able to do 35 projects, and we did 6 in Hopkinton, and they range from on the small side painting to the large side roof. And I was not able to work on these projects, but I was told that in the case of an elderly gentleman who was having some difficulty breathing in the heat of the summer, we were able to get his air conditioning fixed. He was forced to stay in the hospital because he couldn't come home. And then just to add insult to injury, a water main broke, the main from his house to the street, and one of his relatives came to help, like a young man, and secured the pipe with duct tape. So we were able to do better than that. So, you know, we're making a difference in people's lives, and whether it's a leaky roof or an electrical problem, we're able to make a difference when people cannot afford to get the job done. Most of the people that we work with are elderly, female. We do a lot of work with people with disabilities. We do a number of wheelchair ramps every year. And bear in mind, the labor is all free, and we get a pretty good discount on the building materials. So our major costs are the building materials and our mandated liability insurance. So, you know, when I have been on a project, it brings joy to my heart to see that I'm making a difference in someone's life. And one woman said to us, "You didn't even know me, and yet you helped me." So that's what we're doing, and we're requesting $1,000. And I thank you very much for your consideration, and I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
I want to tell you about a problem that happened in the community with the last storm we had just 10 days ago? Well, anyway, just the recent wind, it was a high wind warning, and, you know, and it was just wind on one day, and then we knew that that week, within a couple of days, it would snow and then likely rain by Friday. What happened is a Norwegian spruce, about 80 feet tall, fell on an elderly man's home, And this is an old farmhouse who, and this farmhouse is needed work that we'll be able to get done this year through the home repair program. But meanwhile, this tree fell on his roof, and it ended up, after we found out, it was about 16 different holes that got made into his roof. So when I got the call, I called Bill McGarry, and he talked to the planner to see if my first idea was whether or not the home repair program did emergency work. And they don't, it's just not set up that way. But meanwhile, Jim Lanphier, our planner, was able to secure a group from the Habitat for Humanity. They were supposed to come. So they had said something about, and I did not converse with them, Jim did, but they said they'd send out a crew the next day, first thing. So I didn't know what they would come with, what I could expect, and I know they do have a lot of elderly volunteers, as you know, too. They're not all elderly or unable to do the repairs. There's a lot of people around that are very physically fit and able to help. You know that. So what I did do is I called my neighbor, who I knew would have the proper equipment to handle his chainsaw, could get it off the roof, but he was just one person. So what happened the next morning at 8 a.m., he showed up, and to make it really short, he was there, and he had the equipment, the ladder that would go over the peak, because it's a very steep roof. And he ended up calling another neighbor on the street, on Foster Road, and was able to get another gentleman to come. They got it off the roof. So here we have an elderly man who is very low income. And he has 16 holes in his roof, which our neighbors were able to plug. But it's not the right weather. It was very cold that day, and this stuff is supposed to be used, that liquid foam they use, and it's supposed to be used in not less than 60 degrees, and it was more like 25 that day.
Right.
So everybody did the best they could, but it didn't quite, so he's getting a few leaks, and we're going to have to deal with that. It's good to know that now that I don't think we thought of that. Now there's neighbors to neighbors, and is that something that perhaps you might have been able to help in some way?
Absolutely.
Because it was an emergency, it needed to be done within the next, 24 hours.
Right. We were able to help someone in Hopkinton during an ice emergency. I think it was the winter before last, where there was a big buildup on the roof, and the person that told me the story referred to your staff as coordinator. So there was a person here who was concerned, social services perhaps, was concerned that this roof was going to totally collapse once it started to melt. So we were able to get someone out right away and then repair the roof. And I know all too well about this high wind situation you're talking about. The reason I can hardly walk is I was sitting in an airplane at T.F. Green Airport that Monday, waiting to go to Florida, poor me. But, we couldn't take off, the flight was canceled, and so I had to come back the next day, and the next day it was delayed for 4 hours. And I've got this gimpy hip, and it's just too much. It's just too much. But I do have some brochures for you. We have a website I would encourage you to visit. And I have to say that my fellow volunteers are some of the most committed people that, that I've ever met. Any other questions?
I'm just not crazy about adding on another charity, and what you do is marvelous, and very important, because people staying in the houses is a very difficult thing. But the situation is, like I said, at one time we had a lot of social welfare or type groups that the town funded, and the town was freed from funding them, which could end up being around over 100,000 for the 2 ambulances alone, or 100, then the library, so probably what, 300,000 if you add all the other groups. I'm not really crazy about adding another group, not because it's not meritorious, but there's so many charities and so many groups that benefit Hopkinton residents that a lot of the working poor in this town in this area pay property taxes. And property taxes doesn't take account your ability to pay them. It's not like the income tax or to some degree a sales tax or other fund raising things that the government has. So I'm very property tax conscious because for somebody on a fixed income paying several $1,000s in property taxes is really, really difficult.
Well, you're right about that, and by keeping people in their homes, we're helping to preserve that particular home on the tax rolls. And I would also mention that because our labor is all volunteer, we're able to do some of the projects cheaper than perhaps you would be able to do. So we're leveraging the contribution, I guess you would say. And we have a lot of calls from seasonal workers when there's no work, veterans, and single mothers. So we help a wide spectrum of Hopkinton people.
I'm also not interested in adding to the budget, but I do believe that these are things that people should do privately, and I'm very glad you have those. I'm glad you're going to hand them out. And I didn't know whether neighbors, helping neighbors, is that something you can also apply to the CDBG grants? Our planner knows that, and that would give you grants for doing your work?
I'm not, are you talking about the block grants?
Yes.
Or CDC. We just worked with Jeff Marchand on CDC.
And we should see our planner too about that, because we do, some of these groups we do through CDBG, which is very valuable. So I would love to see, be part of that.
You know, I think I'm going to suggest that our executive director, who has a title but she's not paid. I told her I've never known an executive director not to be paid, but she's not. I'm going to suggest that she be in touch with her. Is it the planner?
It's the planner.
I think that would be a wonderful collaboration.
Right.
Work very closely with Jeff Marchand in Westerly. And
Now, I thought if you use the block grants, you have to pay the prevailing rate, so you end up having to pay.
I'm not an expert on this.
But it's money that it's not out of your pocket.
Right. And I know Habitat's new with their program, and if I understand that they have a $50 application fee or a $100 application fee, and then some of the repairs are financed, and the homeowner gets a loan. We don't have any arrangements like that. Are strictly free 100%.
How does someone apply to you?
We have our applications on our website. The Town Social Services usually has an application.
Thank you very much.
Frank, there's a number of groups that send me nonprofit, similar to this one here, to my businesses, that we donate money to. So she might be better off sending out different stuff to business owners in this town too.
That's true.
You know, and then they donate the money. My wife does it to like 5 different groups. This is the first time I've heard of this group.
Right.
All right.
So every business owner, you send it out.
Do you have a business card you could?
Yeah, well, every business owner in this town, you should send this out to them.
I agree with you.
Especially the guy that's in the tree business. And
Well, that's what I'm going to tell you guys. If you guys got a tree problem, just call me. I'll take care of it.
so it helps.
Now you're all around the whole house.
Well, you know, this falls into the marketing.
Yes,
I think that we're a fairly new organization, 7, 8 years old, and I think we've been focused so much on raising money, getting the volunteers, that we probably haven't been marketing.
I mean, you got to go to every town that you're going to do it, and you need to send it off to the businesses.
Right.
And say, hey, well, you're going to donate for this. They'll do it for a donation because they're going to take it as a write-off too.
Yeah, or 501c3.
Yeah.
Well, great idea. And I don't have my glasses on.
Mr.
Jay?
Yeah, it's Jay Tech One.
All right, thank you very much. Good night,
Thank you
everyone.
very much. Walk carefully. I know.
Good luck with that hip.
Thank you. Physical therapy is a wonderful thing, that's all I can say. Exactly.
So we gotta, I guess we'll have to finalize a lot of things on Wednesday monetarily. Right? want to get into anything on the savings, or do you want to just highlight?
Sure, we can, I mean,
Just an
I can
overview, and then
ask-
we can chat more on those.
Yeah, I can definitely answer the questions. I think that, you know, it might be a lot. We still have to wait to hear back from the Auditor General,
Right.
and we're supposed to hear back from them, fingers crossed, by Wednesday. So for Wednesday, I would have a decision from them. But as far as the last workshop, a couple things have changed. Just on my summary. So we had made, healthcare rates have changed, and they've actually gone down quite a bit. So the previous email, they had suggested healthcare was going to be a 5% increase. It's actually down 2.8%, which is a pretty big swing. We don't generally see swings that big.
Almost 8%.
Yeah, and dental was even more of a swing. It's not as big of an impact dollar amount wise, but we were told initially a 3% increase. It's actually down 8.9%. So this is very unique year, because when have you ever heard of healthcare going down?
No, not much.
So it's a good thing. It's very welcomed this, given the year and the bind we've been in financially. So that total impact. Let me just. Sorry, I get a call.
Yeah.
Is that on the new budget you handed up? Yeah, is that on the new budget?
Yep, it's all incorporated in the new budget. I also incorporated in your package a breakdown and a summary.
Right.
So there was also a new assessed value that was just under $10,000 increase. The net assessed value in total went up about $500,000 from the previous tax roll, which brought in about $10,000 in revenue. In total, we saved about $48,000 in healthcare between work-related injury, health, and dental. So all those changes are incorporated in the budget, including the increase. They were offset a little bit by the increase we made last budget workshop to the police and animal control. So it was some positive things in between last workshop and this workshop that offset the increases from the last workshop and then some. So we were able to reduce the amount of fund balance, or at least temporarily, until you guys decide what you want to do with that savings.
That's positive news. Okay.
Excuse me, Frank,
Oh, yeah.
I have a question. At the last meeting, there were 4 members of the council, and the question came up about Scott's proposal of $50 for the public welfare. Is that something will be voted on tonight or Wednesday?
Wednesday, I put it on there.
Okay.
No votes, they'll discuss on
Yeah,
Wednesday.
we'll discuss. Yeah, so I put that on the agenda for Wednesday. And now that Scott didn't support my nonprofit, I'll have to think about it, Joe. No promises, my friend.
I knew where.
But that's politics.
I knew where Frank.
That's politics, right? Yes, I'm with it.
If we're having this much of an effect on our health care, maybe we should send a note to the school board and ask them how much theirs went down.
They don't use the same, they self-insure.
Yeah.
We use the trust, so we're in a custodian with Richmond and Charlestown. We're all pooled together. So it's basically a pool-wide decrease. So depending on the amount of claims for the town employees in Hopkinton, Richmond, and Charlestown, that really projects our renewal rate. So you're not seeing a decrease in Blue Cross Blue Shield, unfortunately. That's not how, I'm sure everybody that just doesn't happen. But our pooled rate has gone down because of the amount of claims within the 3 towns.
It also goes the other way year to year.
It does, absolutely, yeah. Sometimes we usually see on average between 5 and 8% increase from year to year, but it's a very unique year where.
And I've asked Barry to look into adopting, going with the trust for insurance, but he said the outfit that we're with currently is cheaper. And he did show us the numbers at one point in time, and it was cheaper, so.
And it's also something that they don't have those final numbers yet. The school committee will get final numbers for the healthcare, and they don't have those yet. Because I was checking with Susan Rogers, she has the pension numbers, but she doesn't have the healthcare yet. So I'm hoping that it'll go down. Let's pray.
It's a good thought. The short answer is that they're self-insured, so their rates are really dictated by their own claims within the school district. And
But we're not self-insured?
No.
we're not self-insured, no, we're through the Rhode Island Interlocal
Interlocal
Trust.
trust,
Yep.
right. Yep. All right, you guys have any other questions, comments? Okay, I guess.
Who's going to be at the school budget tomorrow? Okay, Sharon and
I plan to be, and
Yeah, should hopefully.
I do plan to say something too.
Okay. All right, we all set? I guess motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Thank you.